Well, everyone, here we are. It is patch day for Star Wars Outlaws 1.4 to be specific. And 1.4 is important because it happens to bring a bunch of improvements and enhancements, quote unquote, to the game, such as the ability to improve all sorts of enemy AI, improve detection of various enemies and NPCs. They've improved other things, such as the ability to carry weapons with you when you go up and down ladders. NPCs are far more likely to use cover during combat. Enemies stagger when explosions go off near them more consistently now. Adjusted jumping to give more control in the air of where you land. That's cool. All sorts of different things, fixed an issue with destructible flora, all sorts of stuff. So they've made a ton of improvements. And my question is whether this takes the game from being a rough, wait till it's on a deep sale kind of game, or if it's finally at the point where I can recommend that you check it out if you're a Star Wars fan. And I am excited to try it because I do think this game has a lot of potential at its core. I think that the idea is a cool one. Open world Star Wars game, sort of a Han Solo-esque character. Okay, bring it on. Oh no, the game just crashed. Oh no. I'm not kidding. As I was saying that, the game crashed while I was loading in. Okay, not off to a great start. Oh no, do we know how this video is gonna end? Damn it, guys. Okay, let's try this again. We're gonna load in here. This is a save, probably like 14, 15 hours into the game. Okay, this is working out. This is in Akiva. This is their like forested, tropical looking planet, or maybe more jungle planet, not really tropical. But as you can see here, we are running, rocking and rolling. I can turn on performance metrics. This is all without any DLSS or anything. This is just rendering natively so that I can have VSync turned on so you don't get nasty screen tearing in the recording. But as you can see, it's running solid, but that was never the biggest problem for this game. Yeah, there were times where frame rates might be lower, depending on what you were doing. But the real problem with Star Wars Outlaws was always the stealth for me, and that was because of the AI. And there's two different things they've done to address that. For one, they have now lifted the mandatory stealth sequences pretty much throughout the entire game. Main story, side quests, all of that. Meaning, if there's a sequence where you are, for example, like required to stealth, and if you're detected, it's an auto fail state and you have to reload. That's been stripped out of almost every quest in the game. There's some where obviously for like main story reasons, it has to play out that way. But for the most part, like 95, 96% of all of those missions have been redone so that you can now fail stealth and then just fight your way out of it, which I think is much more on theme for this type of game. I mean, it's Star Wars Outlaws, right? It's not Star Wars Assassin's Creed, whatever. The other thing they've done to improve stealth is that they have reworked all of the AI for various enemies. They've reworked how each of these beings behave. Did he just hop off his speeder to shoot at some little creature in the tree? Yeah, he totally did. He's shooting the little, I don't even know what these things are. Are they gonna jump him? They totally are. Huh. Well, you picked a fight with them, dude. They weren't doing anything to you. Oh no, they got him. They took him out. Cringe. Wow. Okay, so dude was just riding along, stopped to try and shoot some of these dudes, and then they just killed him. So maybe like encounter AI is better, but it seems like their general behavior might still be a little stupid. But I mean, they are stormtroopers after all. They were never that intelligent to begin with if you've watched any of the movies, I guess. But anyway, they say that they've improved enemy detection. They've improved their ability to hear you. They've improved their patrols. They've improved all sorts of different things that should make stealth sequences much more stealthy and much less frustrating and arbitrary. So I want to test it for myself, and that's what we're gonna do. I also want to test some of the other improvements, such as the ability to pick up guns going up and down ladders and stuff. The elephant in the room here, though, is all of this should have been in the game at launch. We are all aware of that. We all get that. That's not breaking news to anybody. But the fact that they are adding it after the fact, I think does deserve some credit, because historically, most big companies like Ubisoft, when they have a rough launch, they just sort of walk away and abandon it. And they're like, we're probably not making a profit. Just scrap it, move on. What's the point in trying? And it's really unfortunate that that's historically the approach, but it is. And I hope that this at least pays off for them in goodwill, such that they continue to fix other games that have had problems, or in the future, if there's games that have problems, they put the effort in to actually improve it and fix it, instead of just walking away like a lot of companies do. And I mean, the other piece of this is that the developers knew how this game was. They knew the state of it. There was no mystery there. There were stories with like AC Shadows where the devs were saying for months, we need to delay this. We need to take some more time to polish. It's not ready. And it was only after Star Wars Outlaws launched with some technical issues that executives at Ubisoft woke up and were like, oh, we should probably fix this. And so I hope that now, at least for the next few years until they forget again, executives will pay attention to the devs when they say they need more time. Because what we're seeing here is what happens when those devs are given the time to work on it, when they can make those improvements, make the changes, and the game is significantly better as a result. And we're going to check out all that stuff, but a quick thank you to our sponsor. Incogni is the data protection service that goes around to all of those websites online that have collected your data in various ways and sends requests for that information to be removed through their automated tools. You can see on my account that I've had open since August, I have saved roughly 175 hours worth of time where I would normally have to fill out individual like big forms to request my information be removed. But because Incogni does all of it automated for me, they can actually go through checking my name, email addresses, address, phone number, all of that stuff, and send in these automated removal requests, so I never have to think about it. I can just pop back in here every once in a while, double check how it's doing, and see that all of my data has been removed from all of these sites as they've continued to follow up, sending more requests and more requests as more of my data is removed in real time. It's awesome. I used to get a lot of like robocalls and a lot of calls from like pollsters in the lead up to the election and from like telemarketers and stuff. And since I've used Incogni, I haven't had like any of that. Like seriously, no pollsters. I have not had any telemarketers. I haven't had any spam calls. It's like amazing. It's fantastic. Check them out today at the link in the video description box below, and make sure to use my promo code Luke Stevens at checkout. Do that and you will save 60% off of an annual plan, and you'll stay protected without having to think about it. It's awesome. Go do it today. You won't regret it. Okay, here we are in a stealth sequence on Tatooine. As you can see, we've got some people looking around, walking around. Now, part of the improvements that they claim they've made is with enemy detection and stuff. So historically, if I were to stand right next to this guy, so at like his 90 degree, you know, from straight in front of him, 90 degrees off just to the side, he would not see me. I remember that being an exploit, something that we could easily do in the base game, something that just was super breakable because entire like sequences were built around that, where a guard would be standing against a wall and then you could just come out next to him and he wouldn't see you as you approach him. And so I'm wondering if they've improved that. So I'm going to walk right next to this guy as he crosses in front of this cover and see if he detects me. Okay. Right here. I'm at like 90 degrees to him. Yeah. I still had to do it like right in front of him to get detected. And okay, so that's not really improved. Everybody was alerted pretty much immediately though. That is improved. Previously, these guys over there would not have been activated. They would have just continued looking at me weirdly. And so that is a step up. I'll give them credit for that. The other piece of this, though, was with weapons you pick up, like this grenade launcher right here. Previously, in the launch version of the game, if I ran up here and I tried to use this grapple hook thing, I would drop it. I would just drop it right here. I couldn't bring it with me to that other part of the level. I just would leave it behind. Really weird, like Xbox 360 era problem that they had for whatever reason. But now she puts it on her belt and carries it with her. And if I run up here and I climb this, she grabs it, puts it on her belt, and then keeps going. So you can actually carry these weapons with you now, which is a big improvement. I think that that is awesome. Insert obvious, like, should have been here from the start, dude. I totally agree. In my too long didn't watch summary of my review, I said that this was a 6 out of 10 at launch. Like, I was not that impressed with how many problems they had in the game at launch. It was pretty clear it had been rushed through and through, but they are making these improvements now, and I do think that deserves credit. Now, there are still problems. As you can see, this guy should be seeing me. He had to get that close to see me standing here. Like, that's a little much. Like, I don't think that that's particularly realistic. I think they should have been able to see me, but whatever. I mean, if I'm sitting here, I'm gonna see somebody standing up there, here, all the way back here. I'm still gonna see them, especially if they don't look like they're wearing the right uniform. I probably am gonna see them here. Like, the fact that they had to get all the way up here before they detected me, that still I think needs some tweaking and some improvement. I get maybe this is like they're not trying to go super like grounded hardcore stealth. I understand that, but still I think that that is jarring when the rest of the world and the rest of the recreation of the Star Wars universe is pretty well done. It's a little jarring to go back and see it so unrealistic. Now, enemy behaviors and AI in individual combat sequences has been tweaked as well. So the enemies are far more likely to use cover if they have access to it. That's supposedly one of the big shifts that they've made. So if I get somewhere like maybe I run around here and I get somewhere where they do have cover available to them, they should start to use that cover instead of just standing totally out in the open. So you can see they're over there, and maybe I alert them that I'm back here. And the other thing they've done is they've added the ability to swap shoulders manually by pressing the left stick, which again should have been there at launch, but I'm glad to have it here nonetheless. So she's walking out in front of the cover. She's gonna rush me, really?
Hang on.
Okay. I think that also still needs a little bit of tweaking. But okay, let's talk about this a little bit more abstractly. I do think there's fun to be had in Star Wars Outlaws. I think your tolerance for some of the janky AI and NPC behaviors has to be a little higher. I think you've got to have a higher tolerance for really kind of outdated facial animations because they are pretty rough. Even in like main story cutscenes, it's really inconsistent in terms of quality. But if you're looking for a fun Star Wars adventure, there is one to be had here. It's not super serious, it's not super gritty. It's a very modern Disney Star Wars adventure, which for some people is an immediate turnoff. But then again, like, I don't know what we could reasonably expect. I mean, considering it's the modern era and Disney still owns Star Wars, so it was always going to kind of end that way. But I do think they've made a good number of improvements in the last few patches and with this big update. I can already feel some major quality of life improvements. Reworks to the stealth systems, removing the requirement for forced mandatory stealth, I think is a solid move. A lot of people are like, why would you do that? What's the problem with stealth? Nothing's wrong with stealth. The problem is with bad stealth. And they didn't have a lot of great stealth in this game. So they're removing the requirement if you'd rather just blast your way through it. The combat when you are not stealthing is still a little more lackluster than I would have hoped for. I mean, it's literally just one blaster that you have, and then like you can throw some grenades or you can pick up blasters and do stuff that way, but it's pretty minimal and bare bones. It's still, though, I think solid enough to have a good time if you pick it up on a decent sale. I still don't think this is a full-on recommend buy even after these improvements, because there's still some clunk. There's still some problems with enemy AI and like detection and stuff. And I don't think that's magically going to get fixed overnight, but I do think they've taken some good steps to make improvements. And I think they deserve some credit for that, because a lot of companies as we've said for a long time, would have just walked away from this and would have abandoned it. And so I'm glad to see that they're not doing that and they're taking steps to improve it. But I think it's important that we don't delude ourselves and act like, okay, well, all is forgiven now. Everything's cool. It's like, no, should have been like this from the start. Should have fixed it from the very beginning. Glad you're doing it now, but it really should have never been necessary to begin with. But as we saw in the wake of Star Wars Outlaws, Yves Guillemot, the CEO of Ubisoft, was so startled by the underperformance financially of this game that they delayed Assassin's Creed Shadows to February. And the reporting is that every other Assassin's Creed project, of which there's like 6 or 7 right now in the near future, all of those also got delayed. And each one of those represents a major financial hit. I mean, just AC Shadows, I believe they said in their earnings call, that delay constituted like 20 to 30 million dollars to push it back just like 3-4 months from November to February. That's crazy, but that's what they were willing to do because they did not want to run into a Star Wars Outlaws situation again, where there might be a few good snippets within the game, but because of these like really jarring, jagged edges, people just can't see the good stuff in the game and they can only focus on the problems because the problems are super disruptive. And I hope that that leads to games, not just from Ubisoft, but from every publisher that are way more polished at launch. They don't leave in these little rough edges, or as Yves Guillemot, again, the CEO of Ubisoft, said in the wake of Star Wars Outlaws, he called them little frictions. He's like, we've always launched games with little frictions that we polish after launch, but now it seems that we can't do that anymore. Which is, yep, welcome to 2024. Gamers have high standards for what they spend their money on. Yep, that's what we're doing now. So I hope that this is the shift towards a push for quality first and foremost above all else. I really hope that's the move. And patches like this and updates like this are awesome to see because I do think they represent a healthy shift in the industry. Even if this patch isn't the one that is the end-all be-all that fixes everything, I do think that they deserve some credit for making these improvements, which, frankly, I didn't really expect them to make. I really expected them to just sort of walk away from the game and not bother fixing it. I thought that they were just going to be like, yeah, it didn't turn a profit. What's the point? What's the point? See, this guy's using cover. Previous enemies barely used cover at all, but this guy's now actually using cover. So maybe it was just the cave? I mean, that is an improvement. Again, should have been here from the start, but still, that is better. And I think that's good to see. Every time I see blasters being used, I'm always like, why don't they just use like actual machine guns, like with actual bullets? I feel like that would be so much more effective, so much more potent and useful. But instead, they're using Star Wars blasters. Maybe it's like, I don't know, some Star Wars nerd is going to tell me, well, actually, Luke, the reason that they use blasters instead of bullets is because of this, this, and this. I don't know what the reason is, but it's always weirded me out that like somebody can survive a blaster shot to the face, like without any armor on and like just use a 9mm. Like, what are we doing? But regardless of what you think of Star Wars Outlaws, we're not going to be getting a sequel to the game. They've already said that the team behind it, Ubisoft Massive, they are moving on to work on the Division 3. So, I mean, they're not doing another one. They're not doing another Pandora, or Avatar, Frontiers Pandora, rather. They're not doing any of that. They're moving on from these licensed games that I think kind of came about in that like 2017-18 era is when they were first greenlit and budgeted for. And now it's just not that practical. They're so expensive to make. Disney takes 20-30% of every copy sold. It's next to impossible to turn a profit. Okay, that was cool. And so it's really, really hard to justify all of the work that has to go into it to make it financially viable. I mean, this game would have to sell, I think we did the math on stream. It was something crazy, like 10 to 11 million copies to most likely break even. And at launch, they sold about 1 million. I think it was like 900 something thousand. So these games just are not that practical anymore, these licensed titles. So I think we're not going to see another one. Even if you really, really loved Star Wars Outlaws, they're going to move on to something else. But at the very least, they are not abandoning Star Wars Outlaws. They are making improvements, and they've assigned a new game director to help supervise those improvements and those overhauls, and I think that that's cool to see. Anyway, let me know what you think of all of this in the comment section below. I'll be interested to hear what you guys think, if this is a noticeable improvement, if this is something that will constitute a reevaluation on your part. Maybe this is something that gets you to check out the game or go back to it if you already have it, or maybe you're just not interested at all, and that's fine too. If you don't want to buy the game, don't buy the game. If you don't think it looks very good, don't buy it. It's really quite simple, remarkably simple, dare I say. But I will say, I do still really like the implementation of this transition from space to the planet's surface that they did. I think it's just so smooth. So you see we get a little closer, and then we're going to get prompted to land here in a second once we get close enough. And it's a seamless transition from space to the spaceport. We select which one we want to go to. We come in here. We kind of fast forward. Boom. And I know insert obvious, like, oh, it's actually a load screen, Luke. It's just covered up. Like, no shit, Sherlock. Yeah, of course. That's what it is. Good job figuring that out. But like, it's done very, very smoothly for a game like this. Typically you just have full-on load screens, but this is done really cleanly right there. Of course, full seamless with something like No Man's Sky or Star Citizen or something is even more impressive. But for open world games like this is pretty cool and pretty well done. I mean, that's pretty smooth. That's pretty smooth. I'll give them that. Still, I find that pretty baller. But yeah, like I said, I think it's still a wait for a sale or wait for further fixes. They're getting there. They're making improvements. It's just got a little ways to go before it's all the way there. But until then, you're just gonna have to wait. And oh no! As I was filming this outro, it crashed again. Dude. Okay, that's 2 crashes now. Okay, this is like, it's just reaffirming for me. Okay, we're not gonna do this. Okay, I have what's known in the business as a supercomputer. If my computer is crashing twice within like a single 45 minute to hour long recording, there's something wrong. There's something wrong. So I don't think they're there yet. You definitely need to wait for further patches, or at least until they figure out why it's crashing, and maybe then check it out. But until then, I think this is still a no-go from me. It's not really changed since launch. But anyway, let me know what you think. I love you all. I'll see you in the next one. Hugs and kisses. Bye-bye.